Hey y'all, I'm Elyse. I am the owner and artist behind Elyse Breanne Design. I have been painting in all kinds of ways for the past 10 years or so. So I have painted on glass, on wood, on canvas, on walls. I've painted plenty of murals. So I have lots of experience with working with different mediums and different materials. And I wanted to share with you what I found works best if you want to paint your own ornaments. I'm going to show you how to paint on glass ornaments to give them a matte finish and make their paint last. If you've ever tried painting on glass ornaments or any sort of glass in the past, you might have noticed their paint chipping or the paint just not sticking. The thing about painting on glass is that it is not a porous material, meaning its surface is completely smooth and it doesn't absorb liquid or paint. The reason that painters use canvas is because it's a happy medium between too porous and not porous enough. So it absorbs the paint, but not so much as to dry out your brush entirely on the first stroke. If you've ever painted on unfinished wood before, you've probably noticed that your paintbrush gets pretty dry pretty quick. A lot quicker than painting on a less porous surface like drywall or primed canvas. So when it comes to painting on glass, in order to make the paint stick, rather than scrape right off because it hasn't been absorbed, the trick is to mix your paint with baking soda. The baking soda dries out the paint just a little. It makes it a lot thicker and gives the paint some grit. This means that the paint dries faster and adheres better to the glass. It's important to note that this only works with acrylic paint, and I recommend craft acrylic, which is thinner and has less body to begin with than a heavier weight acrylic. Craft acrylic comes in bottles like these from the craft store. And because the baking soda makes the paint gritty, it also gives a lot of texture to the finished paint job. So the final product looks a little bit more like pottery than glass. If you wanted to maintain the shiny glass finish, then you could always just put paint inside the ornament from the top and then swirl it around until the inside is fully coated. But that's a different project. So let's get right into this one. What you're going to need for this project are some craft acrylic paints in whatever colors you would like to decorate your trees with. These can be found at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, and lots of other places. You'll also need some brushes. I would recommend about an inch width flat brush for doing the base coats. And then if you want to do details, then get some thinner brushes like these. I really prefer brushes with white bristles or sometimes this orangey golden color. And you really don't need to go crazy and spend a lot of money on brushes. I recommend getting them in packs like these. This set is Craft Smart, so it's from Michael's, but you can find them again at Hobby Lobby as well. So you can definitely just get a cheap set. I just recommend getting the white bristles. You'll also need some baking soda, and then you'll want a paper plate. This makes cleanup a lot easier. So I would recommend just putting your paint directly on the plate and then mixing it with the baking soda there. That way you don't have to worry about cleaning off a dinner plate or something to that effect. You can just kind of toss it out when you're done. You'll also need glass ornaments of some sort. They're really not too expensive at Michael's or Target or Walmart, usually like $1 or $2 per ornament. And then you'll need some ribbon to tie off your ornaments with. I chose this frayed velvet ribbon that I really like with the matte finish on the ornament. So I highly recommend that just to give it some fun texture. I got this ribbon from Hobby Lobby. It is the Merchant 41 brand. So that's their in-house brand. And it comes in a lot of different colors. So you can get traditional Christmas colors, but they also have fun blues and pinks and yellows. I also recommend using a plastic cup, or you can also use a glass cup or a mason jar to put your brushes in after they have paint on them. So just a little bit of water, and you can wash out your brushes on here and dry them off with a paper towel or a washcloth. But be careful, acrylic paint will stain fabric. So if you do use a washcloth, it's going to have paint on it. If you do end up spilling acrylic paint anywhere, Clorox wipes do a really good job of getting paint out of fabric or off of tables or anything like that. So if you do end up spilling some paint, I do recommend cleaning off the stain with a Clorox wipe pretty quick, and that will help get some of the paint out. It'll probably still have a stain though, so be careful. When choosing your paint, I highly recommend the Deco Art brand and Folk Art brands. Those can be found at Michael's, and I really like those. They're my favorite. They're about $2 a bottle. You can also find cheaper bottles of paint that are the same size if you get the generic brands. So at Michael's, that's the Craft Smart brand. And if you just kind of look around for your favorite color, that's probably the best way to shop for these paints, because they are pretty comparable. So you can definitely get the cheaper ones. I just tend to really like Deco Art. And this isn't sponsored, I'm just a big fan. Also, if you want to try using metallic paint, that does give a fun finish to the ornaments. So they do have this like matte texture if you look at the plain paint. But if you add in a metallic paint, it still is a little bit shiny. It just has that matte finish kind of mixed in with the metallic. When you're buying your blank ornaments, you might be the type of person who wants to see all of the same color sort of like ornament top throughout your Christmas tree. I did not pay attention to that when I was buying ornaments, and I wish I had. So I ended up with a mix of gold and silver tops. So that's just something to flag when you go shopping for your ornaments. So the first step is to mix your paint with the baking soda. I used a regular tablespoon to scoop out the baking soda, and I would say that you need about a 1-to-1 ratio of paint to baking soda. But you really can just eyeball it. I used a pretty wide array of mixtures as far as the ratio of baking soda to paint when I was doing these ornaments. So some of the ornaments I had maybe more like the consistency of like ketchup for the paint I used on them. And then for some of the pink ornaments, it was an even thicker consistency. It kind of almost felt like I was slathering the ornament with peanut butter. So either way, the paint will stick pretty well. It just depends what kind of finish you're looking for. If you really want the ornament to look like it has kind of like a pottery, ceramic, like rough look, then I would recommend using more baking soda. It'll give you a lot more texture. So the surface of the ornament will be pretty uneven. It even kind of makes the paint almost sculptural, so you can really slather on large strokes of paint, and you'll be able to see exactly where those brush strokes are. So if you're looking for that grittier texture, go with more baking soda. If you want it to be a little bit smoother and have the matte finish but not have too much unevenness, then go a little bit lighter on the baking soda. And once you put the paint down, you can just scoop the baking soda right on top and mix it together with your brush. So there's nothing crazy that goes into it. You just want to get the baking soda evenly incorporated with the paint. And if you add too much baking soda, you can always add more paint. And if you add too little, you can always add more baking soda. So it's really not an exact science. You can just sort of wing it and eyeball it as you go. So when you're ready to get started painting your ornaments, you first want to take off the top. It just comes right off like that. And then also be careful because in the inside here, there can be some sharp edges. So just take a look for that so you don't hurt yourself. When you're painting the ornament, you can either put the ornament on the end of your paintbrush if you just flip it around, or you can hold it with your hands, which I tend to use my thumb just because I feel like I have more control over the ornament. And then you can just start applying your paint once it's mixed with the baking soda right to the ornament surface. When you're painting your ornament, you'll probably need to do 2 coats. It kind of depends on the ornament you're starting with. So this ornament already has an almost like matte finish to it, but if you're using glass, like shiny ornaments, it's going to be a little bit harder for the paint to stick, which means you might need 2 or even 3 coats. On an ornament like this, you can paint just directly on the surface and the paint will adhere pretty well. And if you were painting a gold ornament like this, a gold color, then you might even get away with just 1 coat. So it kind of depends what the ornament's original color is, what color you're using, and the texture of the original ornament. That'll determine how many coats you need. Because you're almost always going to need 2 coats, I highly recommend using a hairdryer to dry your first coat. So when you're holding the ornament, you can just kind of paint on there until it's all evenly covered. And then I would use a hairdryer to dry off the outside of the ornament. And that way you can use the same paint that's already on your brush without having to clean it off and switch colors or anything like that, and just put the second coat on right away. And then if you dry your second coat with the hairdryer as well, then the ornament will be mostly dry and you can just put it right down, and you don't have to worry about putting an ornament onto a paper plate, which then will leave a mark on the ornament where the ornament touched the paint because the paint hasn't been fully dried yet. So if you do want to leave your ornaments and not use a hair dryer though, I would recommend doing at least an hour dry time, because otherwise the ornament may look dry on the outside, but the first layer, or just the paint that's closer to the surface of the ornament, may not be dry yet. And when you grab it, the paint will sort of like wrinkle up wherever you touched it, because underneath that paint is still wet and slippery. So I would just keep an eye out for that. You definitely want to make sure that your paint is fully dry before you touch the ornament again. Also, I recommend when you're using a hairdryer, be very careful, because if you're holding it with your finger's going to start getting hot. I would also try putting the ornament on the end of a paintbrush when you're using the hairdryer, and that way you can have your finger like as far away from the ornament as possible, and that way you don't hurt yourself. Be sure that the ornament is fully dry, including the neck, before you put the little topper back in, because when you put it in, it has, well, most of them have these little spikes, and that can sort of push down the paint if it isn't fully dry, and then you'll get paint on here, which is really hard to get off. So again, really important that you just have the patience to make sure that the ornament is fully dry. I made that mistake several times. Once you've done your 2 coats of paint and put the top back on the ornament, then it's time to add your ribbon. I recommend, if you're using a thicker ribbon like I did, you want to cut it about 12 inches long in order to be able to tie the knot. After that's fully attached, then it's ready to go on your tree. I would be careful because it's still possible for these to chip. So I kept all of the boxes and the plastic molds that come inside the boxes to store the ornaments, and that way they won't touch each other, they won't touch anything else, and then the paint won't chip away. So they are pretty durable, but just beware, they're still glass and they're still fragile. For most of my ornaments, I just left them blank with the 2 coats of paint I was talking about, but I also did some floral designs on them, so I recommend getting creative with it. You can paint anything you want on these ornaments, whether it be florals or some other design. It's definitely fun to mix it up a little bit and try that out, so I recommend that you give that a shot. I'm excited to see what you guys do with this craft and how you make it your own. So if you do end up trying this out, please tag me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm at Elyse Breanne Design. And if you do anything to switch up the recipe or the project, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to see how y'all are making it unique and your own. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Happy painting, y'all.